Welcome to the T1 Determined podcast, where we bridge the conversation of type 1 diabetes and endurance. I'm Joseph Anthony Marcello, a runner, a weightlifter, a mountaineer, and athlete. As someone living with T1D, I'm on a mission to uncover and share science-backed information that drives optimal performance and longevity. And as a storyteller, I'm here to explore and share incredible feats in T1D sports physiology. Let's tackle this together. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to speak with Shawn Wicks, also known as the Diabetic Fighter. Shawn is a nutrition coach with over 8 years of experience helping diabetics take control of their blood sugar and improve their quality of life. He primarily works with T1Ds and athletes, but also helps type 2s who are ready to make serious changes. His journey into this field is personal. He was diagnosed with T1D at the age of 29. As a former Muay Thai kickboxer, he understood the importance of fueling his body for performance, but T1D added a whole new layer of complexity. Rather than letting it hold him back, he dedicated himself to learning how to optimize blood sugar management, nutrition, and training. And now, he helps others do the same. Our conversation stretches over a wide variety, from Shawn's personal story with T1D to actionable items you can learn from to help you find your therapy baseline. You will find our conversation insightful and empowering. As we build this podcast from the ground up and face every slope head on, your support is crucial for our continued growth. Wherever you're listening, please share this episode and others with anyone you think might benefit. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, on Facebook at T1 Determined, and visit our website, t1determined.net. There, you'll find all our podcast episodes, blog posts, and details about our documentary projects, including our upcoming feature film, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude. Before we dive in, a quick but vital disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. The topics discussed and the recommendations shared by myself and our guests are personal experiences and not medical prescriptions. My aim is to foster a community where we can openly share therapy methods and management techniques that work for individuals. I believe comprehensive T1D education and well-rounded glucose management come from learning and listening to a multitude of experiences. You'll hear various approaches, but please remember that not every method or technique will work for everyone. Use this information in a way that best suits you. And always consult your healthcare team and medical professionals before making any changes to your daily routines, management, or therapies. And now, my conversation with the Diabetic Fighter, Shawn Wicks. Shawn, thank you very much for joining me today. As we were just discussing before we started recording here, is that podcasts are a wonderful medium of getting to know and learn somebody. I think that's a beautiful start. And what's even more beautiful in my eyes is that we can have conversations from internationally, across the continent. And you're joining us from the west coast of Canada, correct?
I am, sir. Yeah, from Vancouver. Yeah, I love the whole platform, man. It's I love what you're doing, and I think it's so phenomenal that people can sit back and enjoy conversation and listen to what someone is really about. Social media.
Yeah.
It's funny now because the more that I learn about social media and people's attention span, we have an average that people have an average of 4-second attention span right now.
Very quick. Very quick.
So when you're creating content, you got 1 second to hook someone. But when someone takes time to sit down and listen to someone tell their story or their process, I love it, man. We live in a wonderful time.
The Diabetic Fighter. That's what you call yourself, and I absolutely love it. What does that title entail to you? I mean, it's so symbolic. It's I think of The Fighter, iconic movie, actually takes place in Lowell, Massachusetts, not too far from me, with Christian Bale in there. Great
Awesome
movie.
Yeah.
And you add the word diabetic in front of that, it kinda makes it sound, I mean, as a type 1, as a T1D, that to me, that sounds epic. So, what does that title that you gave yourself mean to you? And, like, let's begin there, and we can learn a little bit about your story from that.
Cool, man. Well, I mean, ultimately, I was a fighter. I'm 42 now, so I had my last fight when I was 40. I've fought Muay Thai and kickboxing. I was actually in a fight camp when I was 29 years old back in 2012 when I was diagnosed. So I guess, when I started thinking about doing this, I was wondering, "Mm, what should I call myself? What should this be about?" And initially, it was like, well, I'm a diabetic and I'm a fighter. But as I've started, you know, over the years, it's kind of evolved,
Mm,
into more of it's more symbolic of what we are and what we overcome on a daily basis. So, initially it started off as just me. I'm a type 1 diabetic and I was a fighter. But now it kind of represents everything we have to overcome on a daily basis. And, all the people I work with, it's really fun. I give them all a little wristband that says the Diabetic Fighter on the back. It says champion.
yeah,
And I get all of them to send me a picture wearing their wristband with their fist up.
that's awesome.
And, we're creating a crew.
Yeah.
And anyone
It's
that,
that sense of community, and I
oh,
mean,
yeah,
I feel it just from talking with you, but it's like you feel proud that you're teaching your clients and everybody that you work with a little bit about fighting, a little bit about nutrition, but it's not just about the fighting. It's like living with type 1. It we're in a fight every day.
every
We're
day.
battling something, and it's just like, even if people, it's called the invisible condition, the invisible disease. Even if
Yeah.
people don't see it, it's kinda like you look behind our eyes for a second, and then that fight is right there, and we're never stopping. So to bring a sense of community into that, you really feel that sense of pride with the community.
The the biggest thing you have to overcome as a fighter is not your opponent. It's
Mhm.
it's your own mind.
Yeah.
And when it comes to type 1 diabetes, you're right. Like, you can't see your opponent, and no one can see who you're fighting against every day. And again, it comes down to, and the more and more type 1s that I work with, I say this all the time online. I had something pinned on my Instagram for a while. It's like, why the real reason you're a type 1. And I truly believe that everyone that ends up being diagnosed as a type 1, it's because they can handle it. I've worked with hundreds of type 1s now, and they all have one thing in common, and it's that they're just absolute, I call them rock stars.
Yeah.
We all have this something in us that allows us to overcome it. Now, whether or not they've been, beaten down by the medical industry, or just given terrible information or lack of information, or just not living in a part of the world that has access to technology and
Mhm.
information. But once they get it all together, each one of us has that in us, that
Yeah.
fighter in us,
I
I
love
truly
that,
believe it.
and it makes me think of the phrase, and again, this can go, of course, this can go for any sort of belief system. It's not married to one single religion, but I hear the phrase again and again, "God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers." And it's kinda like that mentality of the phrase can be brought of, "We're given this because we can handle it."
Yeah, man. Yeah, I truly believe that. Yeah, I truly do.
Wonderful.
We're all fighters, man, and this is what we have to do every day in, day out, until the day we we leave.
Yep. Yep. So,
And
I mean, how did you get into fighting? I mean, what drew you to it? I mean, I think it's relating it back to the constant struggle that we face, the obstacles that we face every day. But even leading up to that, there must have been a long road to a point where you realize that this is for me. I love this sport. More so, I'm a little familiar with it. It's more than a sport. It's kind of a way of being. It's a mindset. It's a way of valuing you and your opponent. I'd love to learn a little bit about how you stumbled upon a sport like fighting and Muay Thai and martial arts.
yeah, well, I was always a big fan of MMA and
Mhm.
UFC, growing up, even as, an 8, 9-year-old, I would go to the gas station and get the UFC VHSs and, watch them, and, sneak home and watch them. Um, but I actually started, or training pretty late in life. I think it was 24 or 25 when I started.
Yeah.
My teenage I wasn't an athlete as a teenager. I was, more of a skateboarder and more of a beating the streets kinda type kid, with not a whole lot of direction for a long time of my life.
Mhm.
But, I, really got into MMA, and there was a gym in my hometown, and the trainer came back from Thailand, and he opened a Muay Thai gym, so I went in to check out the gym, and, I really loved the sense of community, and there was no ego, and, like, I remember he had a sign, it was, like, on the door, it said, "Leave your ego here," and it was really cool 'cause you're very nervous walking into a gym like this, and it's got it was not like the gyms of today. The gyms of today you walk into, they're $1,000,000 facilities. This was like something you'd see in Boston, like in The Fighter. There
Yep,
was
yep.
stuff rigged up
What are those
everywhere.
what it would be, a hole in the wall, blue collar, underground kind of
Yes.
gym, which is
That's
always the best.
very much what it was. I'm from Newfoundland, which, my city, St. John's, is about 175,000 people.
Yep.
We're all immigrants from Ireland, and Britain. So definitely very blue collar. We were fishing
Mhm.
people. So yeah, like the ring was slapped together on, just, but I walked in there and that sense of community and what I learned about Muay Thai, which is a beautiful art, and sport from Thailand, it's all about respecting your opponent and respecting that the time and effort that they put into it. And it was totally the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to go in there and be a big tough guy, but I went in there and it humbled me.
Yeah.
It really humbled me, and it taught me to bond and connect with the people I was training with, and going through the sweat and the pain of classes. And then I started competing when I was probably a year and a half, 2 years. I took my first fight,
Yeah.
and
Now, so all this is happening before you even got diagnosed, correct?
before, yeah. So this was 2008,
Yeah.
2009. I had my first fight, and I was diagnosed in 2013. The interesting thing, looking back now in retrospect, I was diagnosed at 29, and when I look back, there was lots of signs that I was showing the symptoms of high blood sugar even longer than before I started training.
Mhm.
And I think what really prolonged the point, prolonged the time of me getting to the point where I lost all the weight and would just, couldn't function anymore was the sport. I was keeping my blood sugar down by training,
Mhm.
but there was lots of times that I would come back from runs, with the fight team, and I'd be just trembling. And I didn't know why I was trembling. I'd have to go home and get in bed, and I'd just be, like, shaking and
Yep.
cold. I'm like, "Ooh, that was a hard one."
Not even a concept at the time that you needed to check some blood sugar for a hypoglycemia.
No, not even close. So the fact that I didn't pass out at some point, during any of that was definitely a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and fascinating that during so you're not having you're in the process of going into ketoacidosis, however long that time period was. And when we think of ketoacidosis, we think extremely high blood sugars. But the reality of the situation is not being able to regulate or control the glucose within your blood. So
right.
even though you still don't have any insulin on board to where it's a safe manner for somebody going into at least the process of going into ketoacidosis and then being diagnosed with type 1, it's still fascinating to me that your body can go low, that you can use up all the blood glucose, and then because your pancreas isn't functioning the proper way, there is no control within that aspect to naturally bring you back up into stable glucose levels.
Absolutely, and, when I was diagnosed, I was just calculating because you guys use milligrams, we use
Yeah,
millimoles up here. So my fasting blood sugar was 15 millimoles when I was diagnosed, or when I first got my blood work. We'll talk more about
yeah,
the diagnosis, but, 15, so that's 270 in your
yeah,
language. So if my baseline was 270 and maybe I was running 325 all the time, I might have felt hypo at 225 or
yeah,
220.
yep, yep. That's a wonderful point.
So it's very interesting how that happens, and there's lots of times I'm working with people, and then we get their blood sugar down, they start feeling hypo at, like, 160,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
slowly over time, they get, accustomed to it.
You got into fighting and mixed martial arts while going through this process, and then you kind of when you got diagnosed, luckily, I mean, 270 is very high, 15, it's very high, but luckily it's not in a state where your body is physically actively shutting down. Let's talk about the transition period because you have been familiar with the sport for a while. And at the same time, you were an adult. So
Right.
it's not like you were developing, you were not fully yourself because we're always changing and we're always growing and learning. And I'd like to think for the better, at least for me. But like, did you have to alter the way that you fought? And then, like, how hard was that for you to start to figure out? Because, I mean, mixed martial arts, it's a sport where, like, you're giving a lot at once, but it's not like and it's not running 15 miles, so you're not running for hours after hours after hours, and you're also not weightlifting. It's not like you're trying to push up a barbell, so there's movement in there, and there's also muscle. It's kind of, again, like, not no pun intended, it's mixed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for sure. You're looking at explosive energy,
Mhm.
which you're mixing with endurance for steady state cardio, for runs as your base cardio for fighting. So you need both energy systems working for you. When I was first diagnosed, it was pretty interesting because I was in a fight camp. So I was preparing for a fight, and I used to fight at 215 pounds, and I usually walk around at 230, 235 pounds. So what was happening was I just started, like, losing all this weight, uh, eating the right appropriate amount of calories I was supposed to be
Mhm.
eating, and all of a sudden, literally, in a couple of weeks, I was 202, and I just couldn't stay awake in the gym, couldn't stay awake lifting. I was going to get
Wow.
quad espressos and
Yeah.
just powering through. I didn't know what was going on, and, I was initially, diagnosed as a type 2. My whole diagnosis story wasn't very. I don't know what the word is. I mean, it wasn't very direct. I still haven't I've still been waiting for my, C-peptide test results,
Wow.
since 2012.
Yeah. Wow.
So, the medical system was no help to me whatsoever. I went in there as an athlete,
Mhm.
preparing for a fight. I was shredded,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, well, you're a type 2, and here's metformin. Take these and send you on your way. Check your blood sugar, every now and then."
Yeah. Not
So
even questioning to look at the individuality of of your lifestyle, of your fitness to be like, "Hey, something's not adding up."
not at all, not at all. So they gave me metformin, and I was going on a trip. Actually, my wife and I were going to Coachella. I met my
Mhm.
wife at Coachella in 2012, and
That's great.
we were going back there, and I was going to go see her. She's from California, and go see her family home and all these things.
Yeah.
And right before I went, so this is a couple of weeks after being put on metformin, my vision went in my left eye. So I rushed out, got glasses, and the whole thing, and
Did you
we
think it
went.
was a cause do you think it was related to the at the time, type 2 diagnosis, or did you think
No,
that
no,
both of them
I had
or
no idea about any of this stuff. So I was just like, "Oh, like, my vision's going." I don't know, like, it didn't put it together. It was just really
Yeah.
blurry. I couldn't see out of that eye. And it was funny because we went to Coachella and we spent the weekend dancing and partying and the whole thing, and my vision came back. So I know now it was I was just partying for 4 days. My blood
Yeah.
sugar came down low enough that my vision came
Yeah.
back. But to answer your question, about training and how to, adjust what I needed to do, I was really failed by the diabetic dietitians and the people that they sent me to see. That was more of the eat to your insulin. So take this amount of insulin and then eat this many carbs. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
drinking milk. These
Kinda the systematic approach that seems to be like, it's an attempt for a one size fits all.
Absolutely. And the thing I was realizing, my classes for Muay Thai were usually 6:30, 7 o'clock. So I come home from work, take my insulin, eat something, go to class, tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
just hypo, right?
Yeah.
So I actually took some time off, and this is really where I turned myself into a lab rat with the help of my wife. I just started testing my blood sugar and how my body respond to everything. So this was before CGMs were a thing, so I must have went through hundreds of strips every couple of
Yeah.
weeks,
That's
just
that's
figuring things out.
awesome to have the confidence to kinda just say, "Hey, I'm gonna make myself a science experiment." And also at the same time to probably either pay the money or call your insurance company to be like, "Hey, send me an endless amount of test strips."
Totally. I was a pain in the butt for the diabetic dietitians and the end. I didn't really see an endo. They sent me to an endo. He told me, "Take this amount of basal insulin." And I asked, "Well, will this, amount need to be adjusted based on a thing?" "Nope. This is the amount you take." Full
Yep,
stop, period.
yep, yep.
Which
Which
was
we've come to know is not true.
which is not good information.
They change, every single day.
Yeah. So I would ask things to the diabetic dietitian like, "How much increase in my blood sugar will 1 gram of carb, uh, do? How much will 1 gram of carb affect my blood sugar?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't," they had no idea. They had no answers for me. So I didn't like that. I wanted
Yep,
these answers
yep,
because, to me, I said, "Okay, well, I have to now do what my body's system does naturally.
yep.
So there's gotta be a way to figure out how to do this." Like, it
The truth is that this condition is completely individualized.
totally.
So when you're looking for an answer, it's there, it's just not discovered yet, which
Yeah,
probably brought you to what I'm now referring to as your science experiment days of figuring out what works for you.
yeah, absolutely. So I put my training on hold.
Mhm.
I said, "There's no way I can go." So I stopped training for almost a year, until I could get in control of my blood sugar and start feeling confident in what I needed to do. And, excuse me, the things that I was realizing were, okay, starches aren't helping me.
Mhm.
Simple carbohydrates are not helping me. Fruit's not helping me. Um, we can get more into my whole process, but the other thing I uncovered was, really how much complex carb I needed pre-workout, pre-training, like an hour solid of explosive energy exercise, not anaerobic, not weightlifting, but like if I were to do hit for an hour, which is
Yeah.
ultimately is what kickboxing class is,
Yeah.
what do I need to do to be able to stay stable in this class? And I found the right amount.
And with with the unpredictability because
Totally.
you're doing high interval, um, training,
Yeah.
but you don't know at which point because it's so again, unpredictable is the word, but you're exploding at different points because
Yeah.
each fight is different, each opponent is different. So it's like you have to turn and I'm fascinated to figure out how you did it and what the details entail is like how can you prepare for something that is a set certain amount of time, but
Yeah.
every time you step into that circle, it is completely different. It's a different chain of events. They might be linked to each other, but it's like a different order of the links.
Totally. And even for classes, so, no 2 classes the same. So sometimes you might show up to a class and then the first 10 minutes is jumping rope,
Yeah,
or if it's nice out, you're gonna go outside and you're gonna run, a few K. So then now you're increasing your insulin sensitivity.
yeah.
Now you gotta deal with that now because 'cause you're gonna get into explosive energy exercise. That's another different energy system. So, yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare. I'm not gonna tell you that it was super easy and I figured it out right away. No, it took me, 2012, 13, 14, 15. Took me about 4 years to figure all this stuff out,
Mm,
you know? It took me a good amount of time. The thing that I realized, first of all, and this is really the base of what I do with clients, no matter if they're diabetic or non-diabetic, type
yeah,
1, type 2, doesn't matter. The first thing that I realized was, okay, I need to go lower carb, but I need to use complex carbs that are going to sustain me longer. The
yeah,
first thing I found out was when I was trying to go lower carb after years of using pasta and all these carb heavy things that we would do as athletes that we would thought were the right things. You carb up the night before, or you do all these things. The thing that I realized was when I tried to reduce my complex carb or my carb amount, my total, um, after 3 days, usually 2 or 3 days, there was a trigger, and I'll tell you what those are in a second, that was leading to me to like a drive through. So I wasn't able to get it in control
Yep.
long enough. Like I could
Yep.
I could figure out, okay, now this is what I need to do, but now I'm going low carb. So I realized, okay, well, we can only use
There's a
two.
craving. There's something, and honestly, there's a truth to the statement that your gut does control you, and
Yes.
it's like you want if you are in that drive-through, it's because you're craving something that has.
Yes, right. Yeah. It's not necessarily because 'cause you're hungry.
No.
I'm fast forwarding here a little bit, and I don't know how much my life story you want to get into, but I'm in recovery now, and I've been sober. I'll be clean and sober for 10 years in July.
Good for you.
One of the things, thank you, man. One of the things that I learned in my recovery that I didn't know at the time in 2012 that I know now is that no matter what the substance is,
Yeah.
triggers are hungry, angry, lonely, tired, sad, stressed.
As a fellow type 1, that sounds very all too familiar.
So I said, okay, well, now, I'm trying to go low carb and trying to time my carbs, but this is messing me up because I'm having these cravings and I'm ending up, just falling off here. Now I'm bolusing. Now I'm bolusing tons of bolus. Now I got insulin on board. Now this is messing my whole show up. Um, so I said, you know what? Okay, I got to get myself off of sugar. How do I do that? So I said, okay, well, let's take a week and let's see if I can totally detox from sugar. Let's remove every bit of sugar from my life, including fruit,
Yeah.
and see what I can do. So, after a bunch of trial and error, I realized that our bodies can only use two types of fuel. It's either sugar or fats, healthy
Yeah.
fats.
Yeah.
So, what I realized was if I was using healthy fats as my primary fuel source and eating every 2 hours, my blood sugar was I was plotting this before CGM. I was like plotting what time on a graph, and I was noticing, holy smokes, my blood sugar is staying flat. But now it's way up here. So like I'm staying flat, but I'm up at like 180. Well, maybe I need to increase my basal a little bit and push it down mid range. So then I push it down. Oh, now it's down too low. I'm in the gutter. Okay, well, let's bring it back up. So I realized, okay, well, now that I'm using this, that this is a really good way to set my basal rate. Once I got past day 3 and day 4 of the sugar cravings, and now I know that this is when you're starving all the gut bacteria, bought your whole all the microorganisms in your gut that send the signals for sugar.
Yeah.
What you do when you don't feed them is they die.
Yeah.
So you get that they call it now the keto flu,
Yeah.
right? Day 3, day 4. So, I would get to that stage, and once I got past that, it was like someone turned a switch in my brain. I could walk, through the bakery, didn't care.
Yeah.
Someone could eat something in front of me, cookies, cake, didn't care. So, wow, like I just changed my brain. Once I got to that point, then I could safely start bringing back in complex carbs prior to my exercise. And now I could find the right amount that I could use without any bolus
Mhm.
to keep my blood sugar in range. I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest things that one of the biggest challenges people have is their basal rate.
Yeah. Yep.
That it's working with clients now, this is the number one thing that we have to address right off the get-go. The majority of people's basal rates are not set properly.
Yeah.
That's a
And again,
foundation.
and I love how I really respect how you tested yourself. You kinda used yourself to figure out you, and you also acknowledged the need. There's a whole combination here, and again, T1 determined the whole mission of this is to not promote one certain way of a
For sure.
therapy. I'm talking with a bunch of people that have multiple different therapies, but I'm also at the same time encouraging and very much welcoming you to express your therapy because this is your time to shine, and I believe all information's wonderful information, and it needs to be heard and needs to be said. So you hear a lot about the keto diet, and I really like how you bring complex carbs back into the mix. And at the root of it is that you're trying to find energy sources that help you for your sport, but also keep the blood glucose within that control.
Yep.
So you're finding that without certain subsets, you don't have the energy that you need to complete the task without ending up at the drive-through late in the night. But then you take the time to learn what the baseline is. And from the baseline, you build up and see what kind of energy you do need. Then all of a sudden, you have well managed glucose. And then you're able to actually explode and perform within the mixed martial arts.
For sure. I mean, that's the most important thing. Like the keto, the whole keto. My whole philosophy is to be fat adapted, but to use complex carbs for explosive energy exercise. Our muscles fire off of glycogen. We
Yeah.
need complex carb, 100% as an athlete. I've trained fasted. I've trained in ketosis. You just don't have the pop. You don't have
Yeah.
the explosion. You're not at your best performance with that. And just to kind of touch on what you're saying, what you mentioned there about promoting therapies and not promoting therapies, I think that's such a great it's such an important thing to say. Nothing drives me crazier than when people say, this is what you need to do with your insulin. This is what you need to do with your
Yeah.
management. Because
It's
I'll tell you
similar
something.
to when you heard in the medical field, it's the one size fits all. It's not the case
It
because we all react so differently to this condition.
so differently. It's really important that people that listen, they need to understand that every single body is different. Every single type 1 is different. I've worked with one client in particular not too long ago, and she had listened to a podcast and was trying to implement what the podcast host was preaching, and she really ended up in a dangerous situation of going hypo quite frequently. And just because it works for somebody doesn't mean that it's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
That's a really important point, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm all on board
but
with
I
that.
believe in educating yourself, and mediums like podcasts is education.
Totally.
So the outreach and the continuous learning, the more you know, the more you can tailor it to your individual needs.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, once I figured out then, what my body required and what the optimal amount of carbohydrate was, then my performance was better than it was when I,
Yeah,
I was going through all these training camps, LADA, just not showing full blown symptoms. Now I
yeah,
was like, like just
yeah.
a full blown, energy source.
You're reaching the
And
peak performance.
yeah, it really changed the game for me, and then I moved from Newfoundland out to BC, and it was great timing because, out here we have lots of great gyms and lots of great, fight teams, so I
Yeah,
was able to then now elevate my training and elevate, myself in that world, and my skills now having the right, tools in my arsenal when it came to nutrition and blood sugar. It was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and it seems as though you've become so passionate about this that there was a point in your life where you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna make this my career."
Yeah, dude, it was wild, I had a different business for many years. I've been self-employed since about 2004, and I had a different business. I had a digital ad company. We were selling ads online and originally publications and online. Anyway, I had two different offices. I had one in Montreal, one in Newfoundland, and had a very different life altogether. And when I moved out here, my own addiction and my own personal life was really starting to deteriorate, and I've been a functional addict for almost a decade.
Yeah,
And at that point, I decided, you know what, someone's got to give. I've got to address that. And after I addressed that, I realized that the previous work that I had been doing it wasn't fulfilling me at all,
yeah,
and it was something that was holding me back and keeping me in addiction. So, when someone used to ask me how I was doing, I'd tell them how much in sales we did for the month.
Yeah.
This,
It's
you know, yeah. Hey man, how you been? Oh, great. We did 150K. Like
yeah,
it
the
just
the reluctance and probably not even the awareness to show actual emotion
not at
and
all.
to have that at the forefront of your mind.
No, I was a very different guy altogether. Very ego
Mhm.
driven. Very, very much very different. And when I got out of my treatment program, I realized that I needed to cut that loose. And I remember one day I was sitting with a friend at a coffee shop, and I really didn't know what direction I was going to take. I felt positive about the steps I was making in my own life for sobriety, but really no direction on where I was going to go. And I was a personal trainer. I was kind of a condo gym trainer. I'd go to people's apartment buildings and train them in the
Yep,
condo and whatever.
yep.
And he looked at me, and my friend looked at me, and he said, "Look, what if you won $10 million today? And you can't not work for the rest of your life. Everyone thinks you're a millionaire. You do whatever you want. But it's not going to fulfill you. It's not going to make you happy. What's the one thing that you would want to do that would fulfill you?" And I said, "Man, I just want to help other type ones live how I live and figure that." And he goes, "Well, do it." And I was like, "Man, you're right. Well, I should do it. Let's do it." And that was probably in I'd say 2015.
Mhm.
Um,
Inspiring.
yeah, you can't come out of the gate and start working with type ones.
Yeah. That's
So,
definitely so that's probably the very beginning of I mean,
yeah,
in somewhat relating to how T1 Determined is currently, and you probably know and see this in our audience at the time at right here and now in 2025, it's going to take years to build. I'm
yeah,
sure, and let's talk about this, starting a business about Type 1 while
yeah.
managing your own Type 1 and then learning to help other Type 1s, understanding that it's not gonna happen overnight. What
Right.
is that like?
Well, it was I needed to get my process laid down and solidified first.
Mhm.
So, I started working with the new with the personal training clients that I was working on. Say, "Hey, by the way, if you wanna do some nutrition stuff, well, no extra charge. Let's just try if you're interested." So, I
Yeah,
really over that next couple of years, really solidified my whole process. And then I started getting a good following, a good base here locally, and it was all non-diabetics, so either athletes or non-diabetics. And then in 2019, I decided to put my business online and got some help with marketing initially and put it out there and started working with type ones. The thing about, I thought, I think we all think that, the field of dreams, you build it, they will come.
yep.
Oh, I've got this is amazing. Everyone's going to come. Oh boy, crickets.
Yep,
It takes work, man.
yeah.
And the most important thing is to be consistent. But I'll tell you,
I'm definitely learning that. Definitely learning the consistency, and you're right.
the cool thing about it is, though, it motivates me to keep myself tight.
Mhm.
The whole practice what you preach, live what you whatever. It's really important. It's
Yeah,
important to me to be able to tell someone, okay, well, or post my numbers, but also post my shitty numbers.
yeah,
And to
yep.
let people know, like, man, I'm not perfect. I talk about this all day long. I help people all day long. I forgot my basil the other day. It's I it's we're
It
not
goes back to
perfect.
what we were talking about earlier with authenticity. It
It's
really and it's if you are authentic with people, I mean, people are authentic right back to you, and that's how you help people is
yeah,
by showing them all of you, because then they know that they have all of you. I think one of the things I'm trying to do as somebody who's new to the podcast field is like I am genuinely like the questions I'm asking you right now. I'm asking because I'm trying to build something. It's similar. It's a different medium, podcast
yep.
versus personal training, but our interaction here, and I know the listeners will understand this. It's genuine. So it's wonderful to hear that you've discovered that right away, and that seemed to be a driving factor into your success couple years down the road as the diabetic fighter is building.
Man, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone, especially in the age that we live in now, do it for the lives. Don't do it for the likes.
Yeah.
It took me a while, like, I don't have a huge like, I've got 12,000, 13,000 people on Instagram, and there's people that started whatever a month ago and might have 30 or 60,000 followers. It doesn't matter. It matters because the people interact with what I do, and you build a good, solid, authentic, organic following.
Yeah.
And that's so much more valuable than to have a huge amount of listener base that you're paying for or whatever. So I don't know, man. I think it's just be
You have
authentic and
more
keep it up.
opportunity to help that set of people, and those people are
Exactly.
engaged with you, and at the I mean, I tell everybody that we do a recording with is our goal is to affect one life. So
That's
if
all it
I am
is.
inspiring somebody, if I'm
Yeah.
educating just one person, then we did our jobs here today.
Absolutely, man. That's the way you need to think about it. I used to get, initially when I went online in 2019, and you start off literally 0 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And now, like, sometimes I'll post things and I'm like, "Oh, that didn't do very well," but it doesn't matter because I know that someone's gonna come back to me or maybe on a consultation down the road and said, "Hey, you know what? I hear this all the time. "You posted this thing way back and it really resonated with me, and I've been thinking about it ever since, and I wanted to reach out," or "I've been following you for 2 or 3 years, lurking in the shadows, and now I'm ready to talk to you." So
Yeah.
you just keep doing it and just being authentic and keep putting it out there. There's so many people out there, and like you said, if you get one person that's listens to us today and say, "Wow, those guys are like super positive about dealing with this shit storm that we have to deal with," um, maybe there's a way out here.
Yeah. Yep, and
You
I
know,
think I mean, just to kinda double click on the statement right here is the truth is that we're being positive because we know it's rough.
yeah,
And I think everybody who has this condition knows that it's rough, and there's no easy way through it. It's something that we have every single day.
yeah,
If we do good today, that's awesome, that's great, but we're gonna wake up tomorrow.
brand new
You
game.
know, and I can imagine you bring this, and I'd love to gear our conversation into mindset, and you bring this to your clients, this kind of mindset, and I think it's wonderful that it's a mindset that you have in your specific sport, and then you're finding a way to spread it at the same time.
Yeah, man, it's so important, dude. I had a coach once, Eastern European guy, real hard ass. And I did an interview with JDRF years ago, and I
Yeah,
said in that interview, they asked me, "How does you deal with your coaches and all these things?" And I said, "Well, I remember with this one coach, I was hypo, and I was sitting off eating some Dex tabs. He's like, 'What are you doing? Sitting over there eating candy?'" And I was, but this guy, he used to always say if we were doing leg lifts or doing whatever, he used to walk around and say, "When the mind is made up, the body has to follow." And that burned inside my head. You know, the thing about type 1 is I didn't realize it, but when I was trying to get myself under control and my numbers were really high all the time in the
yeah,
200s, low mid 200s, it really impacts your mental health. And everyone gets it a different way. For me, I was getting like really obsessive thoughts and like paranoia about my partner, about job, like all kinds of things, but really negative headspace. And when I'm working with clients, a lot of times when I meet them, most of them have a lot of negative self-talk,
yeah,
and I always know that that's less about who they are as a human and more about the lack of, or they're just being having high blood sugar all the time.
yeah,
And once you
yeah,
start getting the numbers down, you start getting a little bit more mental clarity. That's when I start to try to really hammer in the you're in control of this. You can have control of this. If the mind's made up, the body has to follow. And it really comes down, from my perspective, to having power over food.
yeah, yeah.
And that's a big one. And I mean, that's no,
That's something that you can control. You can control your food intake, and that directly I mean, just real quick, we'll sidestep, and I'd love to open up to you about this, is before I was diagnosed, obviously, the months leading up, we don't know how high I was,
yep,
but we can guarantee that I was high at least within let's say 6 months or so, within that 6 month range before being diagnosed, I was probably relatively high often.
Yep.
You probably experienced, and I can tell you, man, is that at that point in my life, I really did not like myself.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I looked in the mirror every day with actual hatred towards myself. And it feels so weird saying that now because
Yep.
it's almost as if I'm on the other end of that where I've built such a foundation that I don't really care anymore. Like, I do care what people think about me, but don't let it affect me. And at the same time, I don't try to have a high ego, but there was a time period before my diagnosis where everything everybody said affected me.
Yep.
And it's just like, again, you look in the mirror, there was tears because I couldn't stand and I didn't know what was happening. And it's probably and then now 5 years, 5.5 years later, I look back at that and being like, "Oh, how much of that was my blood sugar being so high and affecting my mental state and affecting my emotions?" And now with such I personally eat such a clean diet. My diet's very strict. I try to focus on obviously with like some cold exposure. We can get into a whole wide range of that, but I try to get a lot of dopamine release, and I try to have like the fat omega-3 fatty acids to have the cognitive function, and
Yep.
I can say that I'm personally stable, and it's
Yep.
great and it's wonderful. But there's a lot of people out there who are recently been diagnosed, have yet to be diagnosed, have been diagnosed for a while, and even today still, it's not all roses, as you know. It really the blood sugar even fluctuating, if it's high then low, it affects the way you think, it affects your emotions, and it's really, really important to have patience with yourself, I think.
Man, that's really powerful. Like, I actually I just got goosebumps
Mhm.
listening to your story. That's super potent because, I feel that everything that you just said, man. And I think it's really important for people to understand that, they're not alone. I
Yeah,
preach this all the time. You're not alone. And if you feel like that, if you feel depressed and down or hopeless, helpless, there's people like us that understand,
yeah,
and
yeah,
don't judge and don't say, well, just, you know, don't eat this and you'll be better. No, man, it's like it's deeper than that. I went through it as well with the anger and the self-loathing. I tell my clients all the time, there was a time I would shower with the lights off because I didn't want to see myself in the mirror.
mm,
Didn't like what I looked like, didn't like who I was. And I know now a lot of the substance issues that I had were from being or having super high blood sugar all the time. So I was, abusing stimulants to get to work,
yeah,
and, and that led me to, self-loathing and alcohol
led to
and
a whole domino effect.
you got it. A whole
Yeah,
domino effect. And that's when I, decided to enter treatment was when my blood sugar got stable. And I was like, okay, well now I have a problem. I was self-medicating now, like I'm medicating, and now the self-medicating is here now left over from before. But that's really important. Mindset is it's not something that happens overnight.
no,
It takes a lot of work.
yeah.
And I can feel that you've done a lot of work on yourself as well as a human, as have I, to get to the point where we are right now.
Completely. Thank
So
you. Thank you very much for opening up about that, and
yeah,
I
dude.
really appreciate it, and again, I think it's important to hear that it takes a long time, but it's completely worth it, and it is linked, I think, to well management. Love for a sport. I mean, love for a sport's just, kinda just like it gives personally the sport gives a passion, and it gives
Yeah,
you kind of like a goal to follow, but it's all then linked back to how you handle your nutrition, and again, just re-emphasizing that each person's totally different. They can handle it different ways, but managing and handling the intake, it's what you put in physically, the actual food you put in, the exercise you put in, you get it back out, and it's only accentuated as a type 1 diabetic.
For sure, and I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with. If you were to ask me, what's the what questions do I get the most, people reaching out to me through my website or on social media, and it's always like, "I really wanna exercise, but I can't. I really want to be able to be in the gym or stay in the workout class or to be able to make it through a class, but I can't."
Mhm.
And you and I know that mental health, like with COVID, I almost I was at the point, man, out here it was wild. They closed all the gyms, but the casinos were
Yeah.
open.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go do walking lunges around the casino, do sprints in the casino
Yeah,
or something
because
because I'm
it's
gonna
the
go
only place that you could get into.
lose my mind.
Yeah.
Um, Such a potent antidepressant, right? And I think that this is something that a lot of people are lacking in their life, and I think a lot of people are very hesitant because a lot of type ones, they walk to the store and they go hypo,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? And I think that's really important to mention is that exercise is so important for dopamine,
Yeah.
serotonin. It's the most potent antidepressant there is. And there's nothing that makes me happier than to help someone go from nothing to I've got a type 1 now who's been with me almost a year. Literally, when I started working with him, I couldn't get him on the treadmill for 10 minutes. That was at his
Yeah.
office.
Yeah.
Now, a year later, he's down 40 pounds and he does CrossFit 6 days a week. And he's a totally different human,
That's amazing.
it
And
but
I guarantee you, and you probably come across this a lot, that it's not for the fact to look good. It's
no,
that it's to feel good. And then that feeling good allows you to take control of your life and accomplish your goals.
totally. The side effect of living well is looking good.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Right, that's the side effect. When people come to me, "Oh, I wanna be able to look like this." Yeah, for sure. I work with figure people and bodybuilders and things like that. It's a different animal altogether, for sure. It's all aesthetic based.
Yeah.
But for us that especially have to deal with mental health, and then the stress of I mean, look, diabetes burnout is a real thing. And this is not it's not from people not wanting to deal with it.
Mhm.
It's really, really, really important that people understand that we understand what they're going through, and that exercise can definitely help. And exercise could be walking for 10 minutes
Yeah.
every
Again,
day.
it's different per each person. It's what that means to you. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And figure out walking for 10 minutes is great for the heart, you know? Like the morning walks to see sunlight first thing in the morning. That's great on so many levels, more than just the walk. And now you're correlating multiple different scientific aspects, but you're also starting to feel better. And I love how you just phrased everything.
It's really interesting. I'll tell you this. I just thought of that when you were mentioning this. I used to do
Yeah.
some of the banks up here. You would have like a health and wellness week.
Yeah.
So every year they invite me, one of the big banks, they invite me, they get all the branches together, be a few hundred people there. So they'd have people talking about meditation, they have people talking about different things. So they would get me to talk about nutrition and exercise. And I would always start the talk by getting everyone to stand up and reaching up as high as that they could reach up and bend at the waist and just hang there and then stand up straight and look around. And everyone's
Yeah.
like got a smile because they moved.
Yep.
You know? And it's such a small thing, but it makes such a big difference,
Yeah.
in our life. Our bodies are built to move.
Yeah.
We're
Yep.
not built to sit down all day,
Yeah.
and then get in a car and then drive home and then sit down all night.
Yep. We've
That's not what our
adapted.
ancestors did.
Nope, we've adapted to a certain way of living, and this is the first time in human history that we are seeing. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think we're evolving as humans, but we are seeing a different way than we have moved even 100 to 200 years ago.
Definitely.
And
Majorly.
then being type 1, that brings a whole new element to the equation of figuring out how to manage it within your daily, because the truth is work doesn't stop. Whatever that work is for you, people have to make an income, they have to make a living.
Yep.
And family life doesn't, whatever family and friend life that is for you, that doesn't stop. So not the world keeps on spinning even though you have type 1. So it's all trying and it's something that's constantly on in the background. And you're right, the burnout is real because every day you do wake up with it, but you can get a control on it.
I'll tell you something, man, the people that impress me the most are the type 1 mothers that I work with who
Yeah.
are, like, career people or self-employed, have 2 or 3 children, are type 1s, and still go to the gym. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that blows my
Superheroes.
mind.
Absolute
It blows
superheroes.
my mind. I have one client, and she has 2 or 3 daughters, and one of her daughters is also type 1, and I'm just like,
So so she's managing a kid growing up with type 1, which pediatric diabetes is
"Oh."
not fun at all.
I often wonder, I wonder, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed at 21 years old.
21,
So
okay.
I was late. So a majority of my life I know as a not diabetic. I can't imagine my life any other way now, but it was and as you also somebody who's been diagnosed late, it's different than when you're diagnosed young.
I always think about that, I'm curious of what you think. I was 29, you were 21.
Yeah,
Knowing what you know now,
yeah.
would you think that you would rather have been diagnosed when you were, like, 2 or 3 and had to go through your childhood and your teens as a type 1? Or do you think it's better, it's poor choice of words, but, what do you think versus being, diagnosed as an adult?
This is a wonderful question, and I love the fact that you've asked me this question. Talking with type 1 diabetics who have been diagnosed at a younger age, they always say, "Hey, like, I wish that I wasn't diagnosed so young. I wish I was diagnosed later."
Yeah.
And then talking with those who have been diagnosed later, I hear, "I wish I wasn't diagnosed later. I wish I was diagnosed younger." So it's always the opposite. Personally, I am grateful that I didn't have to grow up with fluctuating blood sugars and not have to develop a very confusing atmosphere of what blood glucose management is while trying to figure out and find myself as a human being. But at the same time, the answer I would give you is that if I were to go back with or without diabetes as a child, I would be 10 times healthier than I was as a child.
Yeah.
I don't think I would eat as a fraction of the sugary snacks that I ate.
Yeah.
And granted, it's okay because you and I were healthy now, but it's always like you look back in hindsight, and even if, and I get asked this question all the time, what if diabetes is cured tomorrow? Are you going to have a massive cake? No,
No,
I'm probably not. I'm probably going to eat the same exact way that I do now.
totally.
It's because diabetes has taught me to be so rigid in my routines for my personal athletic goals,
Yeah.
and I love that, and I don't think I'd ever go back. So I guess that's a little jump around your question. The true answer is I don't know because I haven't faced it, but I
Yeah.
can tell you what I would do if either of the circumstances were different.
I don't know either. It's
Yeah,
interesting, there's no answer to that question because we can't tell,
yeah.
but, I've worked with,
As somebody and even getting to 29 years old, you're almost 30. I mean, that's pretty and even now, you're in your 40s, you have lived a majority of your life without it.
right. Yeah.
Still to this day, you've had it for more than
Bills.
a decade, but you
Yeah.
still have lived more of your being without it. So
Yeah.
I guess the question is, would you rather have it for longer, or are you satisfied with then what you've learned within the time period that you have had it?
It's a wild question, man. I don't know, it's a wild question. Um, I don't typically work with people, 16 years or under, but I worked with
Yeah.
one kid, this kid needed his mom reached out to me, and, he was in high school, I think he's in grade 10 or 11, and, he was having massive highs, tanking lows overnight. They pulled him out of school. He'd just been diagnosed.
Mhm.
Um, and I worked with him. I had him back on the basketball team within 3 weeks. He was back in school, but I stayed in touch with him, and he's in college now. And, just helping them try to navigate, like, dating, or going to friends' houses for sleepovers,
Yeah.
and these types of things that when I look back at the way that I grew up, which was a little bit wild,
Yeah.
um, you know, it's just I don't know how I would have been able to do it or do it well, and I really
Things you
feel
take
f
for granted,
yeah, dude. I
and it
feel
just
bad
totally.
for
Yeah.
people that, didn't have the education or the didn't have the it's just hard too, man, when you're like 12, 13, 14 years old, the last thing you wanna be do is the last thing you want is to be different than your friends.
Yeah.
That's
No,
like the
I think
time where you
the
wanna be
social
fitting
aspect
in.
is huge, and also the concept of what life is and that we are indeed finite isn't as it shouldn't be, is not there when you're younger because you haven't been around. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but it seems to be when I was in high school, I had no concept of death. I was just focused on making sure I had my friends, making sure I had my grades set, you know? There was
Yep,
so many different other worries piling up. I really do. I'm glad you hit on this subject. I really empathize with kids growing up who do feel that sense of they shouldn't. They shouldn't feel embarrassed. I do think that we now live in a culture that's more accepting. If
totally.
somebody pulls out a pump at a sleepover,
Yeah.
you're not it's not as foreign as it may have been in the past. And I think a more welcoming culture and really a great support and friend group and just encouraging kids to be open about it so they can express to others what their needs might be will then make others feel comfortable with them as well.
I agree. That's something I get parents reaching out to me all the time asking or the parents are at capacity with us and things like that. But, we live in a time now where we have the technology where it makes it visible.
Yeah.
So for some people that makes them insecure.
Yeah.
But I try to always pitch it as, well, years ago we didn't have that technology, so nobody knew to ask, or if we didn't tell, no one knew that you might be dealing with something. So
Mhm.
instead of feeling ashamed of it, um, look at it as an opportunity to educate,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
just explain. And it's one of my favorite things to do. I posted something not too long ago, and one of the lines, and it was like an overwhelming urge to explain to what type 1 actually is to strangers,
Yep.
and that's what I definitely have
Yep.
and nobody has any idea, and I feel like it's my responsibility for people to understand what we deal with, how it happens, and that it can happen to them.
Yeah. Yep, I am fully in agreement and guilty if somebody asks me a simple question that should incite a 10-second answer. You find me 10 minutes later writing on a whiteboard all the X's and O's of what is exactly happening to me. And then they are totally blank in the eyes and have no idea what I'm talking about. But I feel a sense of pride because I knew what I was talking about.
Totally. It starts off with, can you eat this? And then the next thing you're explaining carb insulin ratios and correction
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
totally.
love how you are very open with it, and I really do appreciate and would love to double click on how you became so open. And I mean, I guess it's because you realized that you wanted this to be your career, and now you're currently working with people. So you're waking up, living and breathing the condition yourself, but also now coaching people. So when you approach non-type 1 diabetics, it seems like it's become a fun passion for you to explain.
Yeah, it really has. I try to use myself again, living healthy, the side effect is looking good.
Mhm.
So I love when people say, "Oh man, you're looking great," and they know I'm a type 1 diabetic. And what do you do? And I love to be kind of like a billboard for, you can do this too, by the way, and you're not a type 1. You don't have to deal with all these other things that I have to deal with. And I think it's really important for us to kind of wear that badge proudly. That I always say, if you living with type 1 is like playing the game of life on expert mode.
Mhm.
Like the video games we played when we were kids, you get to choose which way you want to play, expert mode. It's the hardest route to take. right? It's the hardest route through this game. And I think it just makes us more resilient. And I try to inspire people who are non-diabetic to live. I mean, the my process is the same for non-diabetics, is the same for athletes, is the same for type 1s and type 1 athletes. The way that I eat to control blood sugar, I feel, is the way that everyone should eat for long-term health. I mean,
Yep.
blood sugar control is the secret to fat loss.
Yeah.
In low insulin levels, secret to fat loss.
Yep.
Vice versa, if you wanna build muscle, you can use your insulin, or
Yep.
spike insulin, bodybuilders post-workout, different conversation. But
Yep.
I think it's important that we wear that badge, and I try to, really since I've put myself out there, in social media and try to be an advocate for type 1s, that's really when I tried to, you know, really make sure that I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. None of us are perfect.
Newsflash is neither am I. So both of us
Perfection's
can attest to that.
perfection's not the key, it's consistency.
Yep. Completely.
So if you wanna be an athlete, you need to be disciplined.
Mhm.
If you wanna be an entrepreneur, you need to be disciplined, right? If you wanna be successful in anything in life, you need to be disciplined, and that's
Yep.
what makes the difference between people who are successful and people who are not. It's
Yep.
just discipline. Now discipline can be learned. I was not a disciplined child. I was not a disciplined teenager at all. So discipline can be learned, but I guess when did I start wearing that badge? It's really when I needed to be out there in the open.
Yeah.
So I needed to be honest with myself and honest with
Yeah.
everybody. So if it's something like posting my meals, you know, sure. Do I want a sausage and egg McMuffin for breakfast this morning? Yeah. But am I going to post that on social media? No. So am I going
Yep.
to eat it? No.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll fantasize and I'll make my own
Yep.
with
Yep.
Ezekiel bread.
Yep.
You know, so I think that's where it came from, is just putting myself out there, and it keeps me. They say in recovery, the newcomer is the most important person in the room, and by helping other people, it keeps you sober. And
Yep.
that's the same philosophy I give to working with type 1s. Helping type 1s keeps me on point.
Yeah.
Getting them to manage and track their blood sugar, their insulin intake, their carbs, their calories, their workouts, their blood sugar, all this stuff keeps me doing it,
Yep. Yep.
you
I
know?
think one of my personal philosophies is that focusing on yourself is not inherently selfish. If you have a strong self, you are then in the position to benefit and help out, again, full circle back to the community. And the stronger you are, the more you can help your community. And then if you look at it from each individual, a community is a full group of people. If each one of those persons within that group is focused on themselves and they can help the community, you can see how it can start to attach to each other and the community can grow strong.
Absolutely, man. It trickles down.
Yep.
You're absolutely on point with that. It trickles down, and there's lots of people that are inspiring to me, on social media and podcasts and YouTube. And I looked up to them, in the type 1 world. And there's some of them are not big influencers.
Yep.
Some of my favorite people, and I try to post, every couple of months, I'll post up, awesome T1D accounts to follow. And
Yeah.
it's someone that I stumbled upon,
Yeah.
who is like, there's one girl I really like, and she's like a varsity runner, and I
And
follow
that's really
her.
cool to manage running at a high school level, and it's really awesome to just
Yeah,
as we were just talking about growing up with type 1 and then to be able to compete.
it's great. I mean, there's so many. I think we're so lucky now for people that are diagnosed. Think about this, like years ago. My aunt is type 1, and
Yeah,
she's, I think, 61 or 62 now, and she was diagnosed when she was 8 or 9. So, how isolated you would feel if you don't know anyone else in your family. And type 1s represent now less than 10% of all diabetics.
yeah,
The the chances of you, like, when I see an insulin pump in the wild, I'm like, "Whoa." and I'll go up and talk to that person.
Yep.
It's pretty rare, and when
Yeah.
I see a CGM, especially the last few years, I'm like, "Oh, hey, you're type 1? Oh, type 2, okay." It's not that I
Yep.
don't wanna talk to you now, but
No,
not as
but
much.
it's like yeah, yeah. When you confront another type 1 in society, or we can call it the wild,
Yeah,
uh, it's relating back to when you said wearing that badge, you can look at somebody and you can see they may not be going exactly what you're going through, but you both have a sense of both of you know what's up. You know,
oh,
you
yeah.
both know that what you're going through, and there's instantly that sense of empathy, and then you can just talk and be friends right in that moment after just meeting each other maybe 30 seconds ago.
100%. I saw a lady, a few weeks ago in my gym wearing an insulin pump. I hadn't seen her before in the gym. She was there, I think, with her daughter, and I saw her wearing a CGM and her insulin pump. And I went up to her and I pushed on her CGM and I went, "Ding dong." And, she turned around like, about to be highly offended by what I was about to say, and I just showed her my Dexcom, and I said, "We're just out here trying to keep ourselves alive," and she
Yep.
laughed, we chatted for a few minutes, and that's so
Yeah,
true. So, now when kids and teenagers or adults or, whomever, we get diagnosed, social media is a wonderful place to find a community, it's a wonderful place to go on there and you know, good or not good, feeling good or not feeling good, having a hard time,
yep,
having a good time.
yep.
Put it up there,
To be
man, and
to be
there's so
authentic.
many people. Yeah, be authentic.
Yeah,
And there's so many people that are I love it. I love the community. I think it's one of the best things. Uh, it's a weird thing to say, but it's one of the best things about being a type 1. It's like it's a
yeah.
rocking community.
Yep, it really is. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started 200 Term is because there's so many wonderful stories out there, and they really just need to be told. And all of them don't need to be told on an hour-long podcast episode. They can be told on a Instagram DM. They can be told with in emailing or messaging, and it just there's so many different platforms now for that community to grow. And you're right, the Type 1 community. I reached out saying I want to start a podcast, and the amount of positivity and help that I have personally received, it's really great.
I love it, man. One of the things I'm really passionate about talking about is the food industry.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's really, really important. I love that there's a lot of good information out about this now. When I first started trying to get in control of my blood sugar, I didn't realize how addicted to processed food I was. And I think it's so like, sugar addiction is I'm a low key sugar addiction person. I help people
Yeah.
overcome a sugar addiction. But the thing with sugar addiction is you can't come out and talk about sugar addiction because no one wants to talk about it.
Nope.
It's crickets,
Yep.
right?
Because unfortunately, it is in virtually every single food.
Virtually everything. Yeah, I always say sugar addiction is the worst because there's a dealer on every corner. So, the thing that I realized, the shift in my brain, and especially over the last, I don't know, decade, maybe 9 years for sure, I got really offended. And when I started getting offended that the food industry was making me an addicted consumer
Mhm.
and purposely making me an addict to to be a consumer.
Yeah.
It made it much easier for me to walk by the Lucky Charms, you know? And I think that we really need to understand that the food industry doesn't have our best interest at heart. I mean, we have the biggest epidemic of type 2 diabetes and obesity. I mean, there's a really good I tell this story all the time, but there's a really good Woodstock documentary on Netflix. And when you watch this documentary, I was watching for the music and the
Mhm.
whole story of Woodstock, but you look around the crowd, everybody's lean. 1969, everyone's lean.
Yep. Yep.
And then, I'm old enough that I remember the low fat craze in the 90s where they were like, don't eat fat. They,
Yep.
low fat yogurt, low fat this, low fat that, fat makes you fat.
Yep.
That actually correlates with the rise of type 2 diabetes and obesity. So when they pull the fat out of these products, when you pull fat out of something, you pulling everything satiating out of it. So what do you need to replace it with something? And it's always sugar.
Yep.
So when they got people off of fat, they got people onto sugar hardcore. And then that's where we started getting all these problems with the high fructose corn syrup. And now we see children, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old getting diagnosed as type 2s. And I think that's the biggest problem we have right now
Mhm.
when it comes to health
Yeah,
is
and it
our food
relates
industry.
back to the theme that you're talking about is if type 1 disappeared in both of us tomorrow,
Yeah.
I guarantee you and I, we wouldn't change our
Oh,
strict diets.
when you nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do personally, I do what I call an earned meal. I don't believe in cheat meals. So my clients and I, we do what I call an earned meal once a week.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Saturday. The UFC's big UFC fight is this Saturday night. So for sure, I'm gonna have my earned meal Saturday. Sometimes I do it Sunday, but I take a 3 hour window once a week and I eat and drink whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
And I get it out of my system and
Yeah.
then I get right back to doing what I need to do. It's not
Yeah.
about being perfect, but it's about
Yeah.
saying on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, oh, you want to just get a burger or something at the bar. Nah, you know what? We've got ground beef in the fridge. I'm going to make a burger, do a lettuce wrap burger. And on Saturday night, let's do a burger and fries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being in control.
Yeah.
And it's
One
very hard when we're eating this highly processed food that is genetically designed or it's engineered to hit all these serotonin and dopamine receptors and crunch
Mhm.
factor and taste buds. And this is what they're doing on purpose to
And
make
it's
sure
hard to find anything but. It's very hard to find healthy food that's very, like, natural food at the least, and it's hard to find that it's something not processed.
it's crazy. I try to, preach to people, if you can't grow it and you can't kill it, don't eat it. If,
Yeah.
if it's got something in the ingredients and you read them and you don't know what it is,
Mhm.
chances are it's not good for you.
Yeah. From being in 2 different countries, it's
Yeah.
fascinating to learn that it is a species problem.
Oh, for sure. It's a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
For sure in Europe, they have different rules and a little bit more stringent when it comes to preservatives and things. So food doesn't necessarily last as long
Yeah.
over there. Canada and US are pretty much the same. Canada has a little bit stricter guidelines when it comes to supplementation, protein powders, things like that. But yeah, when it comes to regular grocery store food or the health food aisle or these processed pros and highly processed foods, what we're taking in is it's chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all chemicals. I guess that's really the only rabbit hole I wanted to go down because I'm very
That's great.
passionate
I'm
about
glad
that one.
no, no, I'm really glad that we hit on that. So I wanna give a huge thank you. I mean, your story is extremely inspiring just from your love of martial arts to what you went through with recovery and to speak I am a year and a half sober of alcohol.
Oh,
And
man.
I never considered myself an addict until looking back to see, and it's again, we can talk about how ingrained in the culture it was, but there was a point in my life where I just needed to stop, and a year and a half isn't long, but I do see myself continuing not drinking alcohol, and I can tell you I feel great. So to hear a story like yours, obviously it's a little different than mine. Your type 1 is a little different than mine. Just to hear it, to understand it, it's inspiring to me what you're doing with your clients online on social media, spreading the positivity, but spreading the education and working with each individual person, interacting with a larger audience on social media. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing out there, and I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent here with me today. And I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I am
Awesome,
very
man.
proud and happy to now call you a friend.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. Happy to come back anytime and chat with you about anything, and
Right.
whatever I can do to help amplify your signal and push you forward, I'm happy to do it. But something you
I
just said
appreciate
that I need to address.
Mhm.
You just said that 1 year of sobriety is not a long time. 1 day of sobriety is a long time, sir. And the only way you get to 10 days or 10 years sober is 1 day at a time.
Yeah,
And
that's
every
great.
day I wake up, I put my feet on the floor and I say, "You know what? Today I'm gonna be sober."
Yeah.
Just make a decision every single day, and the next thing you know, you look back, you're like, "Whoa, where'd all that time go?"
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm very glad
So
that you
proud of
hit
you,
on
buddy.
that. And I know some people listening will be going through very similar situations. Will be very glad that they hear that, and you are 100% right.
Awesome, brother. Keep it rocking, dude. I'm super proud of you, everything you're doing, and I love chatting with you, man. It's awesome.
Likewise, yeah. I think my last and final question for you is those listening to this conversation, I am sure there are a bunch of people that would love to reach out and talk to you. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. You can check out my website. It's diabeticfighter.com. And on Instagram, I'm at the Diabetic Fighter. So my website's diabeticfighter.com and Instagram is at the Diabetic Fighter. And I'm always happy to chat with anyone, any way, DMs, emails, cups on a string.
Perfect. Perfect. And we will provide the links to the websites and your social handle. Well, thank you very much, Shawn. Again, I really, really appreciate it. And I think this is a positive conversation that will create a huge, huge impact.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you, man, and good luck in everything you do. I'm always here if you
Thank
need
you.
anything.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to my conversation with Shawn Wicks, the Diabetic Fighter. His approach is a mix of real-world experience and science-backed strategies, with a focus on sustainable results. Whether through one-on-one coaching or his engaging social media content, he's on a mission to educate, empower, and even bring some humor to the diabetes community. Thank you, Shawn. You can follow Shawn on social media at The Diabetic Fighter and visit diabeticfighter.com for more of his information. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. Every share helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories and understand the science behind T1D and peak performance. For all our content, including details on our upcoming documentary, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude, please visit t1determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance and Facebook at T1 Determined. We will have announcements soon on our expansion to more social platforms. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.